Good. Yeah, as Matza already said, I mean, there are many different repository options. And I think one, the first thing you might want to ask yourself is, do you want to publish your data in a discipline specific or in a discipline or in a generic, let's say generic repository like Zenodo is open for all disciplines. But if you're working, for example, with environmental data, you might want to have it somewhere where the environmental data community is actually finding it better and where the metadata is quite specific. So this is where actually this data submission service was developed from. The idea was to actually get together a group of data centers that are focusing on data relating to biological, biodiversity, or environmental data. And so basically to offer a single point where you can drop off your data, even if it's heterogeneous, and where a specified data center can look at it and see, okay, you know, you have nucleotide data, for example, molecular nucleotide sequences. This might go to this repository. You have environmental data. This might go to this. And then you also have some very specific occurrence data that might fit into another one. So that a whole bundle of heterogeneous data can just be curated by the respective experts, and then these data sets can be interlinked with each other and to keep the connection, but still they are curated with let's say specific metadata and findable for the communities that actually exist, these specific disciplines, specific repositories or portals. So this is the basic idea behind that. So the most important part of the submission service are actually, of course, the data centers that are behind it, that are offering their services to archive and publish the data. And that the data curators that actually look in detail in these data sets, as Matze already also said, and that really go in deep and help you, align your data or describe your data with community standards and so on. So, and also this is what the service does. So, as I said, you can drop off your data, heterogeneous as it might be, into this one submission service. And then you can also beforehand ask if this data is suitable. So we offer or support, and then of course the dataset curation, archival, and publication with persistent identifiers in the respective data center. And this service is open for all people actually dealing with research data. And what is maybe the most interesting part is who is actually part of this network. And you can see there are in total right now 10 data centers connected, and 3 of them are data centers specialized on molecular nucleotide data, which is ENA, the European Nucleotide Archive. I don't know how many of you have maybe previously been working with nucleotide data, but this is one of the 3 main data repositories for nucleotide data, together with NCBI, which is maybe the most popular, and the DNA database of Japan. ENA is regularly exchanging their data. So if you publish molecular data in ENA, it will also be available via NCBI and vice versa, just that you know. So this is one of the databases where we work, or which we work together with. Then there's another one, PGP. It's very specified on phenotypic and genotypic description of plants. And then PANGAEA, where you already got a glimpse into, but Matze will talk about that more in depth, and we will look more in depth into the data covered by PANGAEA. And then there are actually 6 other databases that are located at natural history museums throughout Germany. And you might be a little bit surprised about that, but once one thinks about it, it makes a lot of sense that these museums, they hold a lot of knowledge, especially in the field of taxonomic description. You know, they have these huge collections of specimens that are reference materials for specific species, for example. So they hold a lot of this kind of knowledge and are heavily involved in digitalization projects on one hand, but also on different kind of projects and collaboration, for example, with citizen science initiatives or learned societies focusing on specific species description, occurrence, records in specific regions, and so on. So they are usually not open for for data, but through our or through this taking part in this service, they said, okay, in this setting, we open our archives and our databases also for external data, and help publish also the data that researchers submit here when it's, of course, in their scope. So these are the 10 data centers that are involved in here. And overall, a lot of data types are analysis with that. And so you have an environmental data set, and then you might have a molecular analysis of that. So you have a sequence data set, and you might also have further analytics on chemical components. And this would lead then to 3 different data sets, and one would go into the nucleotide archive, and the other 2 probably to PANGAEA, and all of them would have a link to the other 2, so that if you go, if you find one of these data sets, you always know, okay, there's more to this study. And just very general, it's also possible to put a moratorium, or let's say an embargo date on your data when you say you don't want to have it published right away. You want to wait until, for example, a paper is published. So you can set an embargo date on that. As I mentioned, this service is free of charge, and you can also just make use of the support and say, I have this and this and this data. What repositories do you recommend, or so? So this, we also offer that without that you have to use one of our repositories. And now I just want to show a little bit the kind of information that is asked from you when you would start a data submission. And because we are working with this network of data centers in the background, when you do a submission, this will be, or what is asked for is actually very broad metadata about your data set, and is not going into the really deep into your data itself. This will happen in in exchange with the respective curator at the data center, because every data center, of course, have their specific database structure, and they're following community standards, but not necessarily all the same. So this is something that will where some work and communication will happen afterwards, and when it's decided where your data would fit best. And this will happen to you no matter what you do. This will also happen to you if you choose yourself another repository. If you use, for example, Zenodo, they also have this kind of this metadata form where you put the descriptive metadata for your data in, and then you just add a file, and basically structuring the file to metadata standards is your job. But once you select a repository that incorporates your data in a database, they will always need the information from you, to provide your standardized data descriptions and so on. Okay, so it's not a lot actually of information that would be asked for you from you. It's obviously you need to provide a descriptive title. in the case that when you are submitting several data sets, you should make sure that you think about a title for each of the separate data sets. They can't all have, even if they are distinguishable by their own, persistent identifiers, and they shouldn't have the same title, because each data set is a specific section of your overall study. And the same goes for the description. So each data set comes with its own abstract, its own description. This should also be kept in mind, because you're always a data set abstract is really focusing on this one data set that it's describing. Oh yeah, and this is also noted there. So of course, there's a field where you can upload your data, and either you do it, it's a web service, so you can do it via drag and drop. But in the case that you have large data sets, as we know, drag and drop on the browser does not work at some point. So you can either provide like a cloud storage link or so yourself, or just drop a note and say, I have a lot of data, can you please provide me with some storage space, and this will be sent to you afterwards. You can select, you can select a license, and this is shown here on the right side. We always recommend the GFBio license. There are some more that you could change, that you could choose. However, some of these offered here are very restrictive, and actually most data centers or many data centers only work with not all of the data centers can offer actually all of the licenses. So this would be discussed in the process, and also with the arguments why a certain license might not be the best license for your data. I think you heard about licenses before, so I'm not going to go into much detail here. So what is the default license would always be GFBio, so you have to be cited, but your data can be reused by others. Then there's also a small question about legal requirements. You might also recognize it from the DMP tool. This is an optional thing, or an optional list if you know already you're dealing with one of these issues, like you have samples that fall under the Nagoya Protocol, or you deal with species on a red list or so on, and you have sensitive personal information, or you just don't know, you can drop it here, and then the curator know, okay, we have to look in that a little bit and ask, okay, why do you think, why are you uncertain, what might be points that we have to consider when publishing data. To that end, none of the data centers can actually really handle sensitive personal information. This does not fall in our scope. Just that you know that. Well, another possibility or another question asked or offers actually that you can define contributor roles. In general, you have to or you will be entered as the main author, as the person who is submitting, but then you can also add other ones, and you don't have to use or make use of any of these roles offered here, but at some cases in large studies, it might actually really also make sense to define these roles. For example, PI is very standard that the PI is as detailed for a data set. Authors also, but it might be that, for example, a group of researchers collected all this data, and then there's one data manager who's who's responsible, not collecting the data, but organizing the data. And for this person, it could be set the role data editor, data manager, just to kind of detail, okay, what role these people had in the data, in the generation of the data. There are categories. You can define categories and labels for the submission, but this is also optional. And can help a little bit in to find the right repository, but yeah, they are not in the times of very whole text searches and so on. I think labels are losing their importance a little bit, but it makes sense to set some if they're very explicit. For example, if you refer to a certain project, Mosaic, which is a very famous project, for example, then you could add these labels here. Related publications is also obvious. So if you have already published papers that are dealing with this data, or maybe also a paper where a method is described or that you used, you can put them here. And as I said, embargo time, access restrictions to a certain time. And then I would just want to show you once how interlinkage could look like. As I said, a very prominent example is molecular data generated from environmental samples. And this is here. So we have basically the environmental sample data set sitting in PANGAEA. And under related to, you see the reference to the European Nucleotide Archive data set with the extracted sequences from this data set. And if you look in the data set at ENA, you already see a cross-reference is leading to PANGAEA. And yeah, this is just a little bit more information. I will paste the link to the submission service also in the chat, but you have to sign in. You have to have an account before you can access it. So this is why I also chose this way of looking at it. So we can guide you there. You can always make use of our help desk before, and if you're on the way to find the right repository for your data, we can give you advice on that. And with that, I will go back to Matze.
You saw that slide already? Thank you, Judith. So the next slides, I will explain a little bit with an example of PANGAEA. Both what we actually publish, I mean, Judith already mentioned it a little bit, and then also how publishing works, how the workflow is, and a little bit I will talk about the preparation of data, and in the session after the break, we will have also some more practice and discussion about really how to prepare data to be submittable to a repository like PANGAEA. So PANGAEA's at least focus on georeferenced data. As you could see in the example of Judith, it was a data set combining environmental data and environmental samples, which were then analyzed in the lab and sequenced, and the sequence data went to ENA. So usually PANGAEA is the partner for the environmental georeference data. What is important is the georeference, the longitude, latitude, altitude, depth. So in all 3 dimensions, we try to georeference data, and also not only in space, but also in time with a date time. The data sets can be assigned to when they were sampled. A lot of our data is tabular data, submitted either as spreadsheets, workbooks, XLS open or open formats, or just tab delimited or comma separated text files like TXT or CSV. But also a lot of binary files can be archived in PANGAEA, images, audio, video, documents, data in containers like NetCDF, seismic data, and also zipped archives or tar archives. As Judith already said, I think I can skip that slide a little bit. Model data we do not publish. This is what we do not publish. Model data, software code, molecular sequences, but for such kind of data, there are a couple of other repositories suitable, like GitHub for codes, and then you can combine it with publications in order to get a DOI, and so on and so forth. Pangaea's data is searchable and accessible via different ways. For example, the usual search engine, Google, and also other search engines, do not need so many terms, for example, to have a hit in the upper 10 to Pangaea. So it's pretty nicely searchable via search engines, but also on our homepage, pangaea.de. You can use a topic search, or you just enter some terms in the search field here, or you can choose tiles with a specific discipline, or you use faceting by down down faceting some attributes, so narrowing down your data search, or you can narrow down your data search by the geographic coverage of the data set, or you already just click on the map and choose an area from which you would like to see data, if it's available or not in Pangaea, either by regions, or really you just drag a rectangle, and within the rectangle, every data set georeferenced there is showing up. You can also use our data warehouse you find on our homepage, where you can actually combine different data sets, choosing parameters, variables you are interested in. And like this, you will get as an output all the data sets being characterized by all these chosen parameters and attributes. Or you use other tools like Pangea Pi, which is a Python tool to search for data in Pangea. A pretty good overview of Pangea and how it's working, and what's the data model behind it. You can find in that paper, Felton et al. In Nature Scientific Data, where I want to have a closer look to that simplified data model shown in that paper. So we have a data set, and we want to archive the data according to the FAIR principles. So we, as a data curator, have a couple of things to do, and also you, as a submitting researcher, you can already prepare your data sets according to what it should look like at the end, or can look like at the end. So the data set is connected to a citation. So Judith already said that every data set in Pangea gets a DOE when it's published. So it's findable and identifiable. And as attributes to this citation, we also add the title, an abstract to each data set, actually. So each individual data set also in Pangea needs an individual title and abstract. And of course, once it's published, it has a year of publishing. The author is an important feature of that citation, of course, and maybe also interesting, the affiliation. And to these two, we can assign email addresses to the author. A personal web page can be linked to an author, and also a web page can be linked to the affiliation. which might be an institute or an organization. I mentioned already the ORCID ID, also Judith mentioned it, a very helpful PID to identify authors and contributors individually, and affiliations, institutions, organizations can be also identified by an assigned PID as the raw ID. And the citation itself, as I said in Pangea, it's a DOE from DataCite. So this makes the citation of the data set easy and unmistakably. Another aspect is the funding of your research, where the data set originates from. So we link grants and awards and projects. Also for these kinds of attributes, you have several possibilities of IDs, like the funder ID and grant ID, or for projects, a web page, which preferably is not a web page of your home institution, because every evaluation process each couple of years, the whole homepage is redesigned, and it would be better to link to funder catalogs, registries, and so on, where actually the projects are at least findable for much longer periods than on the institutional websites. For funder, you can use the raw or the DOE of the Crossref funder ID to link this. The data set in Pangea, this is mainly something specific for Pangea. Data sets and data are normally linked to an event. An event means a certain data acquisition in space and time. So it comes along with time and location information, and because Pangea developed from a rather purely a marine database, events from that discipline or marine disciplines are linked to a campaign, which is a research vessel expedition, for example, but can be also something non-seagoing, and also a certain method or device is assigned to the event. Like if it's a research vessel, it was a seagoing expedition, and at a certain date and time and location, a certain device sampled in a certain depth, something. Yeah, this is a good example, but it can be also used for terrestrial or whatever environmental data. As I said, date, time, coordinates, elevation, depth, these are the main features of the time location component. The platform means the vessel or maybe a research station, and the project can be assigned to the campaign. Cruise report can be assigned to a campaign, or the cruise, the scientific the principal investigator, let's say, of the cruise. Chief scientist, that was the word I was missing. And also the event, in that case of research cruise, equals a station. So this ship stops normally and is taking a sample. To the method, you can assign also instruments and sensor details. So you can really specify the method and the device, and also samples can be assigned to a certain, in geology, a certain PID referring to a specific sample. References, of course, can be assigned to a DOE to use PIDs. And now we come to the data. And the data, of course, is made up of parameters, variables you measured, or they were set, or you observed. And for each parameter, normally you have a kind of method you used. So this is assigned to the parameters, also with a proper unit, preferably SE units, metric system units. And then you can assign references and publications to the data. Maybe, for example, a method is modified by someone and so on. So you can add all these informations, and also standard operation procedures, additional documentation you can add at that point. Using different terms from semi-controlled vocabularies and also URLs you can link to a parameter. Publications normally come along with the DOE these days. The URN, for example, when we have taxonomic parameters like species-specific parameters, we routinely link them to the URN of the ITIS, either the ITIS or the WORMS registry, where taxonomic names are actually register is not the right word, but where you find taxonomic names connected with a type of PID. So if you refer to a certain taxon, you get more information about the authority, for example, the people who published the species descriptions, so on and forth, on these registries. And also like this, it's a little bit more unmistakably what you mean with a certain taxonomic name. A little bit similar, you can also link the URL of GBIF to these parameters. And at the end, you see you have a lot of PIDs connected here and there to your data set and all the aspects of your data. So this was just yeah, to give you an idea how everything is connected. If we want to submit data to PANGAEA, you have several ways to do that. Click in the upper left corner on the homepage, in the headline, or at the bottom. So many ways to end up at the submission page, where you get some yeah, general information about submitting data and how it's working. Also, there are a couple of links which helps you to prepare your data before submitting. So, for example, our wiki page, where you can either browse or search for certain topics or questions you have, or you can go to the author's guidelines. Here, very detailed, everything is explained, how data should be prepared and how the submission works. And also what we offer here are best practice manuals and templates to submit data. So you end up at this page, and you can download templates either as tab delimited text file or Excel workbook. I would have a look to the Excel workbook now. So on the first sheet, the info sheet, you find general information about the submission and preparation of your data, and what already Judith mentioned is also written here. Each submitted data table, when we talk about tabular data, requires one unique title and abstract. So this is something you should keep in mind preparing your data. So for each data table you want to submit, you would need title and abstract, and also this set of templates. So the next template here in that workbook is the campaign. As I said, it's rather specific for marine activities. It can be also used and meaningful for terrestrial things, but I would just skip that here and go to the event table. So every event has a unique name without any spaces and so on in our relational database. And you can assign to this event also optional labels and display them. You can add an area information like the name of the location, whatever. But what it needs definitely is a method or device, a date time relationship, and geographic relationship in terms of latitude, longitude. You can add elevation if it's useful or meaningful. So you just fill this out. Below you always have an example, and above you can enter your data. And then at the end, when you use the template, then you can delete the colored stuff, which is just explaining how to fill these tables and giving one or two examples or explanations. The parameter table is a pretty crucial table here. You have to name your your parameters, what you measured actually, what is in your data. You have to give the correct unit and principal investigator responsible for that measurement, because we can assign principal investigators to each parameter, because sometimes different researchers were involved in creating the whole data set with all their individual measurements. You can specify the method and device and also put some comments as free text. And the data table itself actually is the parameter table transposed. So now you have all the parameters as columns, and you fill in just your measurements, your data below. Some of them should come in a certain format, ISO format, for example, for the date time, or latitude, longitude, and decimal degrees, WGS 84. Yeah, but like this, it becomes pretty easy, I would say, to at least get data ready to be submittable to PANGAEA. If you want to submit to PANGAEA, is the same. Okay. One thing, if you go back to the submission page, there's also a short tutorial, 5 minutes, on the bottom of the submission page. You can watch. It also gives good ideas how it's working, how to prepare data for the submission, in particular to PANGAEA. If you want to submit data, it's the same like with GFBio. You have to create an account if you don't have one. When you open an account, then you are already asked at the beginning if you want to create an ORCID ID or if you have one. Again, we highly recommend creating a personal ORCID ID to make you persistently identified. And then, of course, you have to choose a username and email address and so on. Once you are logged in to your account, you can submit data. And then a couple of sheets you have to fill out. Actually, it's a little bit the same like Judith explained already for GFBio. So you enter here a title for your data set. You enter all the contributors. You can also put them in the appropriate order. You can assign affiliations, email addresses on to each contributor. You can choose keywords, as you did already mention. Sometimes, or nowadays, it doesn't make so much sense anymore, since search engines and search functions are so flexible. And but if you choose keywords, maybe you can choose keywords which are not in the title or the abstract, so new terms to your data set that could make sense. The abstract has to be descriptive, which is a little bit different from what a paper abstract looks like, or how a paper abstract is phrased. So no interpretation of data, but for example, you can add citations, references to your abstract, as in this example, for example, it was done. About licenses, also, Judith already said something. We also recommend CC BY as the most open and fair license for your data. We also do some others, but not all the licenses which Judith showed. As she mentioned also already, you can add references. One important thing is if it has a DOI. For older publications, sometimes you don't have a DOI as a permanent identifier, but for all the more recent references, you should add them. It makes it much easier for us and unmistakably for us what you mean. You can add project grants and awards. As I said, you can sometimes link it to the funder registries, pages, catalogs, whatever, which makes it a little bit more permanent than providing links to an institute website where maybe the project is not anymore publicly accessible after the project is completed. And then at the end, you want to upload data. You browse your drive using that add files button, and you can upload 20 files, and only if they exceed 100 megabyte each, or per file, then you would have to check that request upload link box to get an upload link for larger data sets, either more data files than 20 or larger data files than 100 megabyte. And below the file description, this field you should use to describe briefly the content of each uploaded data file, like what is in there, like mentioning the parameters. And also, this is the field where you could enter the individual titles and abstracts and file names, of course, to which these individual titles and abstracts belong to or refer to handle multi-table submissions. And then at the end, you can enter some comments or questions or requests to the editor directly, who is handling later on your submission, and you can check the moratorium required box if you do not want to publish your dataset immediately, or maybe after the paper is accepted, published, or whatever. But this is only possible to a maximum of 2 years. Of course, normal click read and accept and click the terms of use button, and then you go and you submit. So here, just briefly, the user is actually submitting the data, and it's getting into a first review. With the submission, you get a ticket number from our ticket system. You will be notified immediately when you submit data, and like this, you get access to that ticket system. This is for communication with the editor handling your data submission. After a first review, if everything is more or less okay and it looks suitable for PANGAEA, it goes from the editorial board to a specific editor, which is processing your data, downloading the data and archiving it. And in this process, sometimes it makes a couple of rounds through the ticket system because the editor needs this and that and like this. There might be a lot of communication needed to get the data set that it looks good and publishable. And at that step, you get the data set for approval. After your approval, the publication, the data set is published and the DOE, the PID is registered with DataCite, and then comes the interoperability part. So as I said before already, the data in PANGAEA can be harvested, can be searched, downloaded via the website, APIs, the data warehouse, several ways to to spread your data. If you want to know more about how all these workflows work, or how exactly data submission and data preparation works, 2 times a year we offer online workshops. One normally in November about fair data publication, and in May, spring, we offer normally one finding and retrieving data. So this is more for the access, or this is more the access point of view, and the November autumn workshop is more for the from the submitter's point of view. It takes 2 hours, and if you are interested, you can subscribe to the training mailing list. You'll find on our homepage. So that's actually what I wanted to show, a little bit, some pretty details in some slides, the workflow in PANGAEA and what happens to your data sets. It was so detailed because like this, I hope that you get a good idea of where it's good to enrich your metadata, basically. So this was the reason why I took a tour through the data set